Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. I'm your host, Stephen Rose. Thanks for joining us. And we're here with another feature focus, our third, where we take a look at some of the 400 plus features that have been released in Teams in the past year and ask our MVPs, our most valuable professionals, to pick one that they felt was especially impactful, one that you should take a few minutes and take a look at. So I'm super excited to be back here with two MVPs, and joining me today is Sharon Sumner. Sharon, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Stephen. Delighted to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, as many people know from all the bases and all the stuff behind me, I'm a huge music fan. So your last name, Sumner, is the same last name as a famous rock star. Do you know what rock star has the last name Sumner?
I believe that would be Sting.
That would be Sting, Gordon Sumner. So there you go. Nicely
Not
done.
related.
Yes,
Sorry
Gordon
about that.
Sumner, known as Sting because he wore a sweater that looked like a bumblebee, and the name stuck early in his career, yellow and black stripe. But enough of that. How long have you been an MVP? And what are you an MVP? What is your area of MVP?
Okay, I've been an MVP for 3 years, so I'm relatively new. Although this year I was added an extra category. So I was a business applications MVP, and now I'm also business applications and M365 Office services and apps, which is because I kind of crossed the line.
Hang on, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I really come from a point of SharePoint. So I've been dealing with SharePoint, well, for decades, and I love it. I know not many people will say that, but I do. And if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm known as SharePoint Sharon. So that kind of now straddles between productivity in Power Apps and Power Automate, and also the Office layer with documents and documents.
Awesome. So what are we going to take a look at today? Because you said automation, and I agree. Automation is one of those areas that not a lot of people know. There are some great templates on the Power Platform page, but there's some really great things that you can do that are taking a lot of time that you can really optimize and streamline by leveraging Power Platform, like approvals and things along that line.
Yeah, I mean, approvals is one of those things it's there natively in Office 365, but it's more exciting that it's come to Teams in the way that it has. So I want to have a look at how that's evolving in Teams and how we can do something with the data that exists behind that, not just with the automation, which I can expand on, but also just the simple process and how exporting that process can then give us insight into what we're doing with approvals in the business. And it's not just about document approval.
Awesome. Well, let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. So approvals in Teams is something that I know not everybody has played with. It's there as a Microsoft app, so we can easily add it using the app selector. And because it's a Microsoft app, it's generally allowed by most organizations. And we can go ahead and pin that to the left rail so that it's really easy for us to get to. And as you can see, this is the user interface, and we've got several standard approvals, as we call them in here, but also some integrated services. And I know, Stephen, you did a great piece on the Adobe Sign recently, and we've also got DocuSign in here as well. So all approvals, one canvas, which is great. So what do I mean by an approval? Well, we have the basic request, as I've said. We also have those two partners that we can start an approval right there from the new approval request button. And then we have these things called custom approvals, which is more what I wanted to kind of cover today. And I'll show you quickly how to knock one of those up really simply. And again, we can expand on the automation side of that in a blog article I'll do aside this. So an approval is really simple. We start an approval and something gets approved. Now, it doesn't matter what it is that's getting approved. It could be a document, it could be a sentence, it can just be approval for something that somebody is doing. When we include a document, as you can see, the document is right there in the information card on the approval. And approvals for documents can start way back in SharePoint. So this is the land that we're all familiar with, where we can go and start a Power Automate and a standard request sign-off flow. In the background, this is doing some nice authentication for us, and we can have this flow, and this is the bit where I normally go off and talk about Power Automate. We can have this flow doing all kinds of magic in the background based on approving this document. But what I want to show you here is we've started the process in SharePoint, but if we then flick back to Teams, we'll be able to see immediately that that process has become available within the approvals screen. So it's totally integrated into everything that we're doing. We can filter to show only things that are requested currently so that we know what's outstanding, or we can just have the standard view. So then we could also have started this from this new approval where we could have added a document, or we can create one of these custom approvals. Now, as you said, Stephen, lots of templates available in here to do a custom approval, things that people have already thought of for us, which is great. But what if you want to do something really bespoke? What if there's something particular in your team that you want to get an approval process in place for? And it could be something really simple. I'm not going to go through the possibilities, but let's just ask our team a few questions and get that process through approval. So as you can see, I've already set up the basic settings. And here, this form designer, so simple. This is just like Microsoft Forms, really easy. And you can choose between...
By the way, I ask that question every day, why? So this is perfect.
I think I put it in there a couple of times, actually.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I ask that question every morning, why?
You'll like my answer to it in a minute. And as you can see, I've duplicated a question here, so I'm gonna delete one of them. Really easy. The form is updating on the fly. And
that's awesome.
When it's done, I can just hit next. So simple. This is the fun bit, the workflow. So in the background, we can decide that it's important that we have an attachment, who can choose the requesters, and we can even, if you're like me, put in custom responses because maybe your team's a little bit more informal. You can also insist on comments if you want. So really, really nice, simple to use functionality. We then get to preview the form before we go ahead and publish. So what that publish button has done is then made that available specifically to the Sharon project team. So if we now jump to the Sharon project team and look in posts, on our conversation, when you expand out, you can see test 22. There it is, immediately available to the team. So now we can fill that in easily. And the nice thing about this is how it appears in the post. So we'll set me as the approver. And we're going to say why? Well, why not? We do have to consent the first time that we do one of these. And it's important that that message is there, but it's only there for the first time. And then we get this fantastic experience where the card is available and totally dynamic within the post. Okay. So this in itself is functionality that I know not a lot of people are playing with. And I think it's really important. When you think about instant logs, action logs, things that you need to get submitted, get approved, anything like this that's going on in daily life, you can easily just pop in a quick approval. Look how quickly we did that. It's insanely good. And then when we jump back into approvals, you can see that I said hell yeah, which is always nicer than just approved or rejected, right? And you can see it in both my sent and my received. Now,
and you can organize those by status, sent, date, created, any of those, which is great.
So then the export, when we export this to OneDrive, and what that does is creates a file for us to then be able to use for our further automation. So we want to look at the time between request and response, all of those things. My very favorite thing about what it does here is that it splits out basic approvals and custom approvals. So for every type of custom approval that was in that list, there would be an independent log file. So now I don't have to use Excel and filter it down to just look at the ones across my team. It's all done for me. So now I'm ready to jump off and start using that in Power BI, start doing some dashboards and some analysis, and it's all done for me. And that's really
awesome. And you're going to do a blog post where you'll go through all this a little bit slower because this is awesome bit of information. But the key thing is, it's not horribly difficult. Anybody who has some comfort with Teams can do this. And all it is going out and you can either pick a template, which you can customize and change the parameters of, or change your own, but just play with it. You will be amazed. And I'm always amazed to see how many citizen developers we have that have created these things and said, wow, this has changed. And the other cool thing is this is available on web, on desktop, on mobile, iOS, Mac, Android, you name it. So once you create this, it doesn't matter what type of device, it'll optimize itself for that and it will work with that, which is really cool as well.
I think when you've worked with as many business processes and you've seen as many apps and flows as probably you and I both have, it so often comes down to yes or no, right? So this is such the guts of a lot of those procedures that we're going to be automating anyway. So if you think of this as the start and then we can hook some process on the end, it's extremely powerful.
Absolutely tremendous. So, Sharon Sumner. I'm going to call you Sting from now on. That's going to be my new nickname for you. I'm going to go, "What's up,
Thank you
Sting?"
very much.
It'll be great. And people will stare at you and wonder why. And it will be our little thing. And then we'll hand them some googly eyes. That's all we need to
Never
do.
knew that.
So, this is great. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. We look forward to your blog. And we will be right back with our second guest. Well, when I think of MVPs from Finland, two people come to mind. Sami Laho, who I've known for 15 some odd years. And I think of Vesa. Vesa, how are you?
Thank you, Stephen. I'm good. It's been a great day so far, and it's fun to be here. How
Awesome.
are you?
Well, I appreciate you being here. Take a moment. I'm good. How long have you been an MVP, and how do you properly pronounce your last name? Because I get asked that all the time.
I have been MVP for 4 years. I got the title or the award at 2019, and my last name is Nopanen.
What is your area of expertise in as an MVP?
My area of expertise was, of course, Office 365, especially Teams. So I'm an M365 Office, basically apps and services MVP. So, but Teams is and was my passion. Why I basically got the MVP title, and going through things like whatever Office 365 offers. Like, of course, the SharePoint. That's a big part of that. I have been working with SharePoint for since 2005 or 4, and of course Forms, Outlook, Poll, and everything that's included in Office 365. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades there, with Teams passion.
What are we going to take a look at today?
We are going to be taking a look at today polls in Teams meetings. And as they are a kind of a subset of forms, or they are forms, but they only have a portion of the features the forms offers. But I think the very good thing today is to take a look at the new latest features on polls that has been made available to Teams meetings, because it makes the engagement with the audience so much easier.
Agreed. Yeah, polls are a great way. Is everybody paying attention, focusing? What do you think? Give us feedback, whether it's done before, during, or after. It is a great way to engage your audience. It's very simple, and people like to see the results. Yes, I agree. I don't agree. And it also tells you as a speaker, hey, if I say, hey, how many of you have been using Teams for more than a year, or what percentage of you are using Teams to do a lot of collaboration over voice and chat? If those numbers are not what I expect, then I know I may have to spend more time on some slides, less on others, or maybe even bring up another deck. So it's a great way to gauge the water. So Vesa, let's take a look at your demo.
All right. And first, what we want to do for Teams meeting is, of course, we add the polls application there. So obviously we want to open the meeting. And once we get to the edit mode there, we can go ahead and add the new application and search for a poll. We can see that already, of course, but it's good for demo to show around that, okay, you search and add a poll, save, and chop, you have the polls in the meeting. So it's that easy to get started. And on the right there, you are already seeing the suggestions. That's the new feature. Polls is suggesting you some good kind of ideas. Okay, this is perhaps something you should be asking from the audience. For example, the ranking is there. Which of these topics would you like to focus, or how likely you are to recommend the product, and so on. So you can see there are different pre-made polls for you. You just go ahead and choose
even
one.
Stars versus circles. The graphics even look a little different in some of these, which is cool. Yeah.
And there's a type like collecting feedback, and I just selected how satisfied you are with the overall package. So we are getting some instant feedback. We could edit the title. We can choose the symbol, so it doesn't have to be a star. It could be a light bulb. I like light bulbs. It's a kind of a, hey, that's a good idea kind of mark. And you can specify which kind of level 1, level 5 texts there are as well. So everything is customizable. And you can, of course, record names of those who are going to answer those polls if you want to keep track who was saying what. And of course, you can want to share the results to the audience or not. So it's just a check mark which one you are going to check in or out. And of course, the last one is if you have co-presenters, for example, in the webinar, you want them to be able to edit the polls you have been creating. So you have a collaboration going on. So creating a poll through suggestions is really easy. And you already saw that there's a lot of opportunities you can do in here. So pulling in information and you just save it as a draft. So it will be now ready for launching if we want to. And we can still edit that if there's a need to change something. So or of course we can delete that if we want to start over. And going through the suggestions, we can see, for example, there's more details there like ranking. We could go ahead and rank the designs according to your preference. So you can have your audience give you feedback about some of these versions, like what's in there. And you can shuffle them. So your opinion about this, when you are saying which is the best one, version A, version B, or which is the best kind of preferred rate, doesn't affect your audience. So the shuffling is really good there. And you have the same options like before, and you can save it as a draft. So adding polls through suggestions is really easy. And like you said, it's kind of a very great idea to have different graphics, because it's going to make it a bit more interactive and fun, because it's just not stars all the time. So next was the portion of my recent polls. Earlier, you always had to start from the scratch. But now with this latest release, you are going to see your recent polls, what you have been putting there for past 30 days. So you can just choose something you used and make edits as you like and add it to the meeting. So reusing the content, not having to start from the scratch, that's really, really good feature in there. And of course, we can create a new poll from the scratch, and we can see the ranking and rating part there that we already tried out through suggestions. But I really suggest you use the quiz part to test for the knowledge and keep the people awake where they're listening at all. And of course, I like the word cloud, because that opens the open-ended text for your attendees, so they can give you more insights you didn't really even think about. So don't forget those either, even when the suggestions is a really good one. So you can use that. And of course, you can use the multiple choice, the basic old good one, the version of polls that was there since the polls launched. And now that we are going to the meeting, we can see how we can start using them. So we can see the polls application there on the top toolbar, and just go ahead and open that, and then we can see the polls we created. And we can go ahead and see what, for example, launch the poll, so the audience can see, and we can just reply. Of course, we are very satisfied we created the poll, or okay, medium, perhaps this time, and then we submit. And then we can see the results happening on the polls application. So we are seeing that 3 medium result was for everyone. And we can then go ahead and close the poll and check out the response details if we want to see whatever people were individually responding, especially if their names were recorded in there. So we can see, okay, what was there. Taking a peek, we can export them to CSV file if we want to. We can delete that, and we can close the poll. So we can control the poll through Teams. And of course, after we closed and realized we shouldn't have closed that poll just yet, we can go ahead and reopen the poll so people can still start answering that if we want to. So it's really really good one. And if you think about rating, so okay, we can just do the same for that. We are launching the polls when we need them, and we can organize the answers. We can see they've been shuffled. So the person C was on the top, and we're just thinking about, okay, which one should be going to which place, and we can easily rearrange them using arrows even if we want to. So the user interface
I love the fact that they're drag and drop as well as arrow up and arrow down, which is great.
Exactly. And then we just submit. And when we have submitted, we can see, okay, who prefer, what kind of designs are preferred beyond others. And that's really a good one. And yeah, we can close it. I think it's good hygiene to open and close them. And we can reuse polls. We can just add new polls to the meeting on the fly, just by going to my recent polls, for example, and okay, which is a good one? Is the word cloud, or we just used
Right.
how are you feeling today? And
But you're going to want to plan these out in advance and start to think about what may be good rather than trying to run over, do one, and drop it into a meeting. It's good to think ahead on this stuff.
Exactly, but there's always some situations where you want to adapt. So you have a structure in the webinar, or for example in the workshop, you just might want to add some polls during the meeting, or you realize, okay, I didn't put the feeling meter there this time. So I have been using that recently. I can go ahead and add it really easily there, and go ahead and I can just launch it. And then bang, it's in the meeting. People can start using them. And of course, we could create a new poll as well if we want, but it's good to know that the suggestions is there as well. So you can see that, okay, I can go ahead and use suggested polls during the meeting if I want to. And of course, when we are creating new ones, we can add new one. But what is good to understand that there may be some situations sometimes that you forgot to add the polls application in advance. You didn't plan the meeting, or you are in a meeting and you realize, okay, at this point, I really want to add some polls now. And you don't have the polls application there on default. But it's not a too big issue, because you can just add the polls application or ad hoc to the meeting if you want. Just go to plus apps, you add an app, and go ahead and search for polls, or you can see it in recent one, and you just hit the polls, and it will be added to the meeting. And then when you open the polls, you can start creating new polls as you like.
Now, I do want to take a pause here for a second. If you're not seeing polls, it's not that you're using the wrong version of Teams. It may be that IT may not have turned on that feature, correct?
Correct. It will be in the blog.
There we go. Beautifully put by Vesa. Vesa, thank you so much. Any final words before we close out on this episode?
Thank you, Stephen. And of course, the final words. The community really rocks. That's why we are doing this.
It does indeed. Couldn't have said it better myself. As an ex-MVP and someone who loves community, I agree 100%. So from all of us here at Inside Microsoft Teams, thanks for joining our episode. Keep an eye out for the blogs from Vesa and Sharon. We'll be getting those up in the next week or so. And as always, thank you for joining us. It's been great. We'll see you on the next episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. See you then.